Okay, today I get to take a look at something I've been wanting for a while. This is the WORKPRO miter saw table. So we got our adapter for the miter saw. This is what's going to actually mount the miter saw to the table. We got this plastic clamp right here, which is going to attach to the tubing. I think it's kind of interesting. They actually have an adjustment screw right here. So that way, if you clamp onto this thing a heck of a lot and you wear this block down, you can just kind of tighten it back up. And now on this side, we got a little clamp, which locks it in. Here we got a rail end. We got our instructions. Nice packing on here too, so we don't have to worry about this thing getting dinged up. We got our hardware. We got the center rail bracket, and it looks like this is just the rest of the table. So let's get our wheels out of here. So these are some nice solid wheels. They actually have kind of a good weight to them, which is reassuring. I really like this folding mechanism too. This actually operates a lot nicer than I was expecting it to. So this is already pretty much put together, and then we just got the rest of the rail. So looking at it from the bottom, we can see it is just a standard surge protector right here. So that is going to split the power from an extension cord to 3 outlets. It doesn't come with a cord for this, so you have to supply your own. But the nice part about that is that you can get whatever length that you're going to need. So if you need 100 feet, you can get that. If you want to carry that much, you can just get a 25 footer. I actually kind of like that they didn't put the cord in and increase the price of it, so I don't have to pay for something that I'm not even going to want. So here's our handle. I like seeing that it's nice and wide so my hands can actually fit inside there, and it is fairly reinforced. These are our front casters. Very nice feeling bearings in there. There is no wobble to that. It's kind of neat having those little pockets there. I believe this is mostly just for reinforcement, just so it can hold more weight. So it's supposed to be able to hold 330 pounds. They also cut this a non-slip surface, so if you want to flip that over and use this, give you something a little bit more traction you would get out of a perfectly flat surface. If that's something that matters to you, then you got it. There's also the potential benefit that if you're going to be using this as a miter saw stand, you got that facing up, it can collect some of the dust. So if you're at a work site and you really don't want to leave a mess, this could help to collect a lot of that dust so you don't have anything laying on the ground. It's pretty much impossible to contain it all, but if you can contain something, this would be the way to do it. So the first thing we're going to do is use these shorter bolts, and then we're going to use washers and lock washers. So we're going to take bolt, lock washer, and washer. We're going to use that to attach these casters. And the nice thing about this is that this is actually threaded, so there's already a nut on there. We don't have to try and hold something from underneath. This is a 14 millimeter socket. Next, we're going to attach the wheels, so these just fit right over that peg. Throw on a washer, and these are using nylon lock nuts, so you don't even have to use Loctite or anything like that. And these are 10 millimeter. Wow, where'd that guy go? The last thing for the table is this handle, so we're going to take these long bolts and then these 2 lock nuts, and they are the same size. So the table is complete. So it has 3 holes right here, and then it has 2 pins, so we just press this together, and then when it lines up with the hole, it locks in. That's actually a little bit taller than my old table. So this is where it gets cool. So we got a nice flat surface right here. Of course, you can flip that over just by pulling this pin and flipping that guy over. We got a couple of metal dowels, so those are going to just stick into holes in the side, so we can use whichever side that we want. It's actually kind of a neat idea. I'm not sure how much I would actually use this side. In fact, since I'm going to be using this specifically as a miter saw table, I'm probably just going to take this thing out and let whatever dust fall all the way through. But if you want to have this as a work table, we do have that option right there. And if you're working on your car and you're using this as a workbench, we actually got trays right here so you can keep all our nuts and bolts together. We've got spots for our tools. So if your miter saw is one of those fancy ones that actually requires a wrench, you'll have a spot right there for the wrench. It's actually a very well designed thing. Looks like we got 31, almost 31 and a half inches. So almost a yardstick right here. We also have graduations down to the 32nd right here, which is pretty impressive. Most importantly for me, something I really like to see is this has inches as well as metric. What that means is if you don't want to pull out your tape measure, you can make a couple of quick measurements right here. And especially if you're working as a team, you got to send that to somebody else and they didn't bring their tape measure. You actually got something here that you can still measure with. We got that. We got a protractor so we can duplicate angles. It's actually fairly well featured. So they call this a 5-in-1. Why is this a 5-in-1? The reason is because it is a workbench. You can fold this up, leave one arm down, and you can use it as a dolly. At least that's what they say. I don't know that I would ever use it like that. You could use it as a creeper if you want to work under your car, although it's going to be a little tall. We would be looking at about not too bad, maybe about 6.5 inches. So as long as you got the car jacked up enough to where you can fit underneath it with 6.5 inches underneath you, this will work, of course, as a creeper. Why wouldn't it? It's, you know, it can hold 330 pounds, so that should be able to hold pretty much anybody. So you got a workbench, miter saw stand, dolly, creeper. Oh, and then of course you can just keep this basically as a creeper, but as more like a 4-wheeled dolly. So you can keep that on the ground and roll boxes around. I don't really care about most of that. I'm going to be using this specifically as a miter saw stand. The fact that it has those other options is cool. Maybe if you're really trying to crunch and save space in your garage, then this would be more useful for that. So let's get the miter saw stand set up. So for these tubes, you can see we got holes on the top and the bottom, but in the middle, we only have a hole on one side. Now we want to make sure when we're attaching this that we've got it at the correct angle, because right now this one is correct, but if I flipped it around and I try to attach it to that hole, the holes will be in the wrong spot. So you want to make sure that these are all lined up correctly before you start screwing. So now the whole table, including the miter saw stand, is, oh wow, that's cool. This is actually spring loaded. I did not expect that. For the size of these clamps, they're definitely strong. That's pretty heavy duty. But the one thing I was curious about, does it come with hardware for mounting the saw? And the answer is yes. We got these nice carriage bolts with a washer, lock washer, and a nut. So we got 4 of those. We can actually mount the saw to the table with everything that's included. So now, I'm going to try to get these so they are somewhat close to where we're going to be lined up. The reason I'm going to be putting them on right now is just so that I want to make sure that they're going to be parallel. About there. All right, a little fine tuning, but that is not bad. So we can go forward and backwards. So depending on the balance of the saw, is it going to be more front heavy or back heavy? We can kind of adjust that. I'm going to put it right about in the middle. Then I'll throw carriage bolts in from the bottom, washer, lock washer, and nut. And because this is a carriage bolt, the square is going to sit right inside the track, so I have to hold it from the bottom. And that is a 1/2 inch nut. You can also use a 13 if you want to use metric. This guy up a little better. So the cool thing about this as is that if you had a second saw, like maybe your shop also had a chop saw, but you really like using this miter stand, if you had another set of adapters like this, you could attach that to the chop saw, and you just pull this guy off, throw the chop saw on. So super quick, easy way to change out your saws. It does slide back and forth, so if you need a little bit more room on the right, you can do that. Or if you just want to have access to your tools, if you want to have access to the protractor, you can do that. Actually, a pretty cool little guy. You know, let's go ahead and knock these cuts out to those marks that I made before. Go. We are in business. And we can see we got some dust on the saw, we got some dust on the table, but surprisingly not a heck of a lot of dust on the floor. So if we did use that with that egg crate on the other side, that would probably do very well for keeping everything contained. And then of course what I would consider to be the main benefit of a miter saw stand is the fact that we can pack that guy up. Actually runs real smooth. But the fact that we can take our whole saw and take that right out to the work site, we can take the thing right home with us, we don't have to worry about somebody stealing all of our equipment. That is a really big deal. And also just keeping everything in one place. So yeah, that is a very cool table. I'm happy with that.